Now, if you currently hold any shares of SCHD or the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF, I'm sure by this point you've heard of the fact that on October 10th, this ETF will undergo a 3-for-1 share split. Now, although stock splits are pretty common, you see them across the market, I have not seen an ETF split, at least on an ETF that I've held onto, since I've been invested into the market over the last 8 or so years. Now, because of this ETF split or the share split of SCHD, there are going to be some very specific changes that I think you guys are going to want to know if, of course, you hold any shares of this. Things I'm talking about is how many shares you should expect after the split, and more importantly, what are the dividends going to look like, and what is the dividend growth going to look like moving forward. So I promise you, if you hold any shares of SCHD, make sure to stick around, drop a like down below, and let's get right into this one. Real quick, for those that haven't already, make sure to go to the first link in my description and grab my new dividend investing ebook, where I share exactly how I went from $0 invested to now earning over $6,000 on a monthly basis and over $1 million invested in the markets. Along with the ebook, you're also going to receive my custom dividend tracker, where you can track your dividend progress on an ongoing basis and reach your dividend investing goals. So make sure to grab yourself a copy of my dividend investing ebook and the new dividend tracker today. It's the first link in my description. Now, just real quick, in case you've been living under a rock, yes, what I said in the intro is true. This ETF is going to split 3-for-1, and this is going to happen after the close on October 10th of this year, which is literally just a few days away. Now, also important, this share split will apply to shareholders of record as close of the markets on October 9th, payable after the close on the 10th. Shares will begin trading at the new post-split price on the 11th. So a lot of people have been asking me, when do I need to hold on to shares? Can I buy shares on the 8th, the 9th, the 10th? This is exactly how it works. You need to hold on to shares before market close on the 9th, and then they're going to split, and you're going to see the new price post-split on October 11th. So if you have 3 shares, you're going to have 9 shares. If you have 9 shares, you're going to have 27 shares, etc., etc. Just look at however many shares you have and multiply it by 3. That is exactly how many shares you're going to have. Now, also important to note, whatever the share price of SCHD is at that time, it's going to be divided by 3. So as of right now, SCHD is around $85 or so per share. So that means that SCHD would be trading at around $26 or $27 per share, which honestly is going to be pretty wild. Now, as imagined, a lot of people have been asking me questions about this split and what I personally think is going to happen because of the split. Does it mean anything? I mean, after all, SCHD is the same exact thing. It's just basically going to be 3 shares for 1. Now, a few things about this 3-for-1 split that I think are going to be extremely bullish when it comes to SCHD. Number 1, selling cover calls. A lot of you guys watching this video either sell cover calls or maybe have heard about selling cover calls. But if you want to sell cover calls, you need to have 100 shares of whatever stock or ETF you're selling calls on. And because SCHD is currently $84.26 per share, at least as I film this video, that means that you need to buy around $8,420 some odd dollars of SCHD in order to sell 1 contract, 1 set of cover calls, which is pretty pricey. Now, after the split, post-split when SCHD is of course much quote-unquote cheaper. I say it that way, of course, because it's not really cheaper, it just looks cheaper. Investors truly will be able to sell cover calls for basically 1/3 of the price. So if you wanted to sell cover calls in SCHD post-split, for example, you would only need to spend around $2,700 in order to sell cover calls and get your toes wet in the option trading game. Now, that's going to be a huge plus, and I've seen this time and time again with different stocks that I've held onto that have split. Take, for example, Apple stock. At one point years ago, Apple stock did split. I held onto a bunch of shares of Apple back then, and I remember a lot of investors being super excited to be able to sell cover calls or trade options because Apple, once again, just like SCHD, became much, much more quote-unquote cheaper. Now, along with that, there's going to be other investors that now are going to be able to purchase SCHD, a full share of it, if it's only around $25 or $30 per share, because although a lot of brokerages these days do offer fractional shares, not every single stock brokerage does. So again, an ETF that costs $25 or $27 per share is going to be much more obtainable to a lot more retail investors, and honestly to a lot more investors in general, versus a single ETF that costs $85 per share. Now, even with all that being said, of course, this split doesn't really change all that much. You're still holding on to the same exact asset. The price just divides by 3 and your share amount multiplies by 3. But what about the dividends when it comes to SCHD? This ETF has been paying some nice dividends over time and has been raising their dividends consistently. As you can see right here, the most recent dividend announced was 15.3% larger than the previous years, and the one before that was 24% larger. SCHD is known for some massive dividend growth, which is one of the main reasons on why I hold 700 plus shares as of right now. Now to talk about the dividend, because of course you guys are probably very curious about this just like I am, the dividend yield currently trailing 12 months is 3.5%. Now even post split, when SCHD is much cheaper, quote unquote, the dividend yield is going to be the same, but the amount paid for dividends is going to be different. You see, for SCHD in the future, when it costs say $25 or $27 per share, you're no longer going to be receiving 75-cent dividends, 82-cent dividends, or even 61-cent dividends. Everything is going to be divided by 3, relative more or less to what it's previously been paying out. Now that means that it's going to take several years from now for SCHD's dividends to reach $1 per share per quarter, which I was honestly super excited to see, but it looks like it's going to take a lot longer with this stock split, which is perfectly fine. So as far as what we need to expect as far as SCHD holders, I personally think that there's going to be some bullish sentiment when it comes to this ETF because of the split. Like I said, because it's going to be even more obtainable for investors that don't trade on brokerages that offer fractional shares. Like I said, I know a lot of you guys do. Most brokerages these days like Robinhood, M1 Finance, and others do offer fractional shares. But on other brokerages like I use, Thinkorswim, Schwab, these brokerages do not offer fractional shares, which means now when SCHD in the future it costs $25 or $30 per share, somewhere in that range I'm guessing, investors are going to be able to buy complete shares probably a lot more frequently. Along with that, I think the other biggest takeaway is probably going to be the fact that a lot of investors are going to be able to do some options trading because getting 100 shares of SCHD is going to be much more obtainable. It's going to be 3 times cheaper. But as far as SCHD's dividends go, as far as the dividend growth goes, I think we're going to see more or less of the same as we've seen historically. We're most likely going to be getting larger and larger dividends over time. At least that's what this ETF has more or less shown us so far. So you don't have to worry that your 3.5% yield, trailing 12-month dividend yield is going to drop down to 1.15% or something like that. The dividend yield is going to remain intact. The dividends are still going to come in, but SCHD is just going to look like it's a lot cheaper and nothing really else other than that. So now that we talked about this 3-for-1 share split, I gave some more insight on what I think about it, why I personally think this ETF is going to have some bullish sentiment behind it, and we went over the fact that the dividends are going to be more or less the same. I lastly, most importantly, want to hear from the community. I want to hear from you guys down below. Are you personally happy about this 3-for-1 share split, or are you angry about it? Let us know your honest thoughts down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like on it and subscribe for more future content like this. Thanks as always for stopping by, and if you are interested in investing, make sure to check out these recent videos I posted right here.